In today's video, we're going to take a look at cells, and specifically the differences between those of animals, plants, and bacteria. Cells are the smallest unit of life that can replicate independently, and they make up all living things. Although bacteria each consist of just a single cell, most animals and plants are made up of billions or even trillions of cells. If you consider all cells in general, we can split them into two groups: eukaryotic cells and prokaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells are complex and include animal, plant, fungi, and protist cells, with all of these organisms being known as eukaryotes. Prokaryotic cells, on the other hand, are more simple, and the cell itself is its own organism. For example, bacteria consist of a single prokaryotic cell, and so we class them as prokaryotes. One of the things you need to know is the structure of both animal and plant cells, and be able to compare the two. To do this, we need to take a look at the different parts of the cell, which are known as sub-cellular structures, or sometimes organelles. First, both cells are surrounded by cell membranes that control which substances can pass in and out of the cell, by only letting certain substances pass through. Both types also have a nucleus, which contains the genetic material, or DNA, that controls the activities of the cell. They're also both filled with a gel-like substance called cytoplasm, which is where the subcellular structures sit, and also where the chemical reactions take place. You can think of it as the water which fills a water balloon, but the consistency is closer to jelly. Then mitochondria provide the cells with the energy that they need to function by breaking down sugars in cellular respiration, which we'll take a look at in another video. And they both contain lots of ribosomes, which are where proteins are made. In addition to all of these subcellular structures, which are common to both cell types, plant cells also have a few extra bits. Around the outside of the cell membrane, they have a rigid cell wall made of cellulose to provide support and structure to the cell, which is really important because if too much water entered the cell, it could burst. A lot of the cell is often taken up with a permanent vacuole that contains cell sap, which is basically a sugary solution made of the sugars and salts that the plant needs. And finally, they also have chloroplasts, which are where photosynthesis happens. We cover it properly in another video, but basically it's the process by which plants use energy from the sun to make sugars. And to help with this, they contain a green substance called chlorophyll, which absorbs the light needed for photosynthesis. And it's this substance that makes plants green. Now remember that animals and plants are actually made up of millions, billions, or even trillions of these cells. And although the structures we've looked at here are a good starting point, there is actually a lot of variation among cells, and different types can look very different. The last thing we need to look at are bacterial cells. Bacteria are prokaryotes and consist of a single prokaryotic cell, so we can call them unicellular, meaning one cell. Just like some eukaryotic cells, they have a cell membrane, cell wall, ribosomes, and cytoplasm. However, they don't ever have mitochondrial chloroplasts, and their genetic material isn't kept inside a nucleus. Instead, they have a single circular strand of DNA that's free to float around the cytoplasm, and that contains all of the genes that they need in order to survive and reproduce. Some bacteria also have additional small rings of DNA, called plasmids, that carry extra genes, like antibiotic resistance, which the bacteria don't need on a daily basis, but may sometimes come in handy. Bacteria can also have flagella, which are thread-like structures that protrude from the bacteria and can rotate to propel the bacteria forward, so that it can move around.